The Salem witch trials were a series of legal proceedings that took place in Salem, Massachusetts, between February 1692 and May 1693. During this dark period, more than 200 people were accused of witchcraft, and 30 individuals were found guilty. Tragically, 19 of those convicted were executed by hanging, 14 women and 5 men. The trials were fueled by mass hysteria and the accusations of young girls who claimed to have been harmed by the spells of certain women they accused of witchcraft. The events began when 9-year-old Elizabeth, Betty, Paris, and 11-year-old Abigail Williams, the daughter and niece of Samuel Paris, the minister of Salem Village, exhibited fits, including violent contortions and uncontrollable screaming. A local doctor diagnosed bewitchment, and other young girls in the community soon displayed similar symptoms. The accused included Tituba, a Caribbean slave owned by the Paris family, as well as 2 other women, Sarah Good, a homeless beggar, and Sarah Osborne, an elderly woman in poverty. The accusations spread, leading to a wave of hysteria and the tragic loss of innocent lives. The Salem witch trials were fueled by suspicions, resentment, and fear within the community. The legacy of this dark chapter in American history endures, serving as a reminder of the dangers of mass hysteria and the consequences of unfounded accusations. Did you know? In a scientific study published in Science magazine in 1976, researchers suggested that the strange afflictions suffered by those bewitched in Salem might have been caused by the fungus ergot, found in rye, wheat, and other cereals. Ergot can cause symptoms such as delusions, vomiting, and muscle spasms. Origin. The Salem witch trials, a notorious episode of mass hysteria and injustice, began in the spring of 1692 within the Puritan settlement of Salem Village, Massachusetts. It was a time when belief in the supernatural and the devil's influence was widespread, not just in Europe, but also in colonial New England. The villagers of Salem were grappling with the after-effects of a British war with France in the American colonies, a recent smallpox epidemic, and fears of attacks from neighboring Native American tribes. These tensions were compounded by a long-standing rivalry with the more affluent Salem town, present-day Salem. Amidst this backdrop of fear and suspicion, in January 1692, young girls including Elizabeth, Betty, Paris, and Abigail Williams began exhibiting strange and disturbing behavior, violent contortions, and uncontrollable outbursts of screaming. A local doctor diagnosed these afflictions as bewitchment, which led to a cascade of accusations against many local women, marking the beginning of a series of events that would lead to trials and executions that are remembered as one of America's darkest moments. This period reflects the dangers of superstition and paranoia, especially when combined with a legal system that allowed spectral evidence, a type of proof based solely on visions and dreams. The trials resulted in the execution of 20 individuals and highlighted the potential for injustice when fear overrides reason. The accusations. The accusations that catalyzed the Salem witch trials began in January 1692, following a series of strange and inexplicable events involving 2 young girls. Elizabeth, Betty, Paris, 9 years old, and her 11-year-old cousin, Abigail Williams. The girls experienced fits characterized by violent convulsions, uncontrollable screaming, and trance-like states. Their behavior was alarming to the community. It defied medical explanation and was unlike anything the villagers had witnessed before. Dr. William Griggs, the village physician, was unable to determine a natural cause for their afflictions and suggested that supernatural forces might be at work. The Puritan belief system, which permeated every aspect of life in Salem Village, included a strong belief in the devil's power and his presence on earth. The idea that the devil could recruit witches to do his bidding was not a new concept, but it had never before had such dire consequences in this small community. As the girls' symptoms persisted and worsened, they began to accuse others in the village of witchcraft. The first three accused were Tituba, the Paris family's Caribbean slave, Sarah Good, a homeless beggar known for her irascible behavior, and Sarah Osborne, an elderly and impoverished woman. These women were perceived as social outcasts and were easy targets for accusation. On March 1, 1692, local magistrates conducted a public inquiry where the accused women were interrogated. The questioning was intense and coercive. Tituba's confession was particularly significant. She described elaborate images of black dogs, red cats, yellow birds, and a black man who wanted her to sign his book. She admitted to signing the book and declared that there were other witches looking to destroy the Puritans. Her vivid testimony fueled the mass hysteria that had begun to take hold of Salem village. The situation escalated rapidly as more accusers came forward and more individuals were accused, leading to a period of legal proceedings characterized by fear-mongering and superstition. The jails became overcrowded with residents from Salem village and neighboring towns who faced accusations of witchcraft. This period of paranoia would lead to infamous trials and executions that remain a cautionary tale about the consequences of extremism and injustice. The hysteria spreads. As the spring of 1692 progressed, the hysteria that began in Salem village spread like wildfire throughout colonial Massachusetts. The initial accusations by Betty Paris and Abigail Williams had opened a Pandora's box of suspicion and fear, and the number of accusers and accused grew exponentially. The situation was exacerbated by existing rivalries and personal vendettas within the community, as neighbors turned against neighbors, children against parents, and parishioners against clergy. The Puritan belief in the existence of an invisible world of demons and witches gave credence to the idea that Satan was actively working to undermine the godly community of Salem. The afflicted individuals, mostly young women, played a crucial role in the spread of hysteria. Their performances during trials, where they would fall into fits, claim to see apparitions, or feel invisible forces pinching or choking them, provided powerful imagery that convinced many of the reality of witchcraft. The judicial system at the time allowed for spectral evidence, meaning that dreams and visions were admissible in court. This type of evidence was impossible to refute or verify, leading to a situation where anyone could be accused with little to no tangible proof. The courts, under pressure to act, relied heavily on this evidence, resulting in a series of convictions based on dubious testimony. By May 1692, the newly appointed governor of Massachusetts, William Phips, established a special court of Oyer and Terminer to handle the witchcraft cases. The court's first conviction was that of Bridget Bishop, who was hanged in June 1692. Her execution set a precedent, and over the following months, 19 more individuals were hanged. One man was pressed to death for refusing to enter a plea, and at least 5 others died in jail awaiting trial. The hysteria reached its peak during the summer months as accusations flew and paranoia gripped the colony. It wasn't until September when public opinion began to turn against the trials. Influential community members started to speak out against the proceedings, questioning both the validity of spectral evidence and the justice of executing individuals based on such flimsy testimony. By October 1692, Governor Phips dissolved the Court of Oyer and Terminer and replaced it with a Superior Court of Judicature, which disallowed spectral evidence and only condemned 3 out of 56 defendants. The shift in legal proceedings marked the beginning of the end for the Salem witch trials. In May 1693, Governor Phips pardoned those who were still imprisoned on witchcraft charges, effectively closing this dark chapter in American history. The accused and executions. The accused in the Salem witch trials were a diverse group of individuals, encompassing all ages, genders, and social standings. The hysteria that had gripped Salem village did not discriminate. It ensnared everyone from a 4-year-old girl to a 71-year-old woman. Many of those accused were well-respected members of the community, which only served to heighten the fear and confusion among the populace. The executions began on June 10, 1692, with the hanging of Bridget Bishop, a woman known for her flamboyant lifestyle and previous accusations of witchcraft. Her trial set the tone for those that followed, a mix of spectral evidence, fear-mongering, and moral panic leading to a guilty verdict. Over the summer and into the early fall, 19 more individuals were hanged on Gallows Hill, each one condemned by the testimonies of the afflicted and the acceptance of spectral evidence by the court. One of the most harrowing executions was that of Giles Corey, an 81-year-old farmer who refused to enter a plea. In an attempt to force him to do so, he was subjected to peine forte et dure, a form of torture where heavy stones were gradually placed upon his chest over several days. Corey's last words were reported to be, "More weight," and he died on September 19, 1692, without ever having entered a plea. The trials and executions were not limited to Salem village. They affected surrounding communities as well. Accusations spread to Andover, Topsfield, Ipswich, and beyond. The fear was so pervasive that many confessed to witchcraft in hopes of sparing their lives, as those who confessed were not executed. As autumn approached, public sentiment began to shift. Doubts about the validity of spectral evidence grew, and prominent figures such as Increase Mather publicly criticized the trials. By October 1692, Governor William Phips dissolved the Court of Oyer and Terminer in response to growing opposition, and established a new court that disallowed spectral evidence. This change led to a significant decrease in convictions. The final executions took place on September 22, 1692. Following these hangings, no one else was executed for witchcraft in Massachusetts. Those who had been convicted but not yet executed were eventually pardoned or had their convictions reversed. The aftermath of the trials left a lasting impact on the community and legal system, leading to changes in procedures for trials and evidence that would influence American jurisprudence for centuries to come. The decline of hysteria. The decline of the hysteria that characterized the Salem witch trials began in the fall of 1692, after months of trials and executions that had terrorized the Massachusetts Bay Colony. The turning point came as the community started to witness the horrifying results of the trials, innocent lives taken based on dubious evidence and spectral testimony. Doubts and skepticism began to permeate the public consciousness, leading to a critical re-evaluation of the proceedings. One significant factor in the waning of hysteria was the increasing criticism from influential community leaders. Clergyman Increase Mather, father of Cotton Mather, published a treatise called Cases of Conscience Concerning Evil Spirits, which argued against the use of spectral evidence, stating that it was better that 10 suspected witches should escape than one innocent person be condemned. His stance, along with other vocal critics, played a crucial role in changing public opinion. Additionally, as more and more prominent and well-respected members of society were accused, including several ministers and the wife of Governor William Phips, it became increasingly clear that the accusations had gone too far. The fear that anyone could be next led many to question the validity of the accusers' claims. Governor Phips, upon returning from a military expedition in Maine and finding his own wife accused, ordered a halt to the proceedings and prohibited further arrests. He also dissolved the Court of Oyer and Terminer in October 1692 and replaced it with a superior court of judicature, which was instructed not to admit spectral evidence. This effectively put an end to the witch trials, as subsequent juries were far less likely to convict without such evidence. By early 1693, public sentiment had largely turned against the trials. The new court cleared most of those accused, and Governor Phips eventually pardoned all who were still in prison on witchcraft charges by May 1693. The aftermath saw apologies from judges and jurors involved in the trials, restitution to the families of those executed, and a day of fasting and soul-searching for the colony's sin and error. The Salem witch trials serve as a sobering reminder of how fear and hysteria can override reason and justice. The decline of hysteria marked an important moment in colonial American history, where reason began to prevail over fear, leading to significant legal reforms that would shape future judicial proceedings. Scientific explanation. In the centuries since the Salem witch trials, historians and scientists have sought to understand the causes of the hysteria and afflictions that led to the accusations of witchcraft. Several scientific explanations have been proposed to account for the strange behaviors and symptoms exhibited by those who were said to be bewitched. One widely discussed theory is that of ergot poisoning, which suggests that the consumption of rye bread contaminated with ergot, a fungus that grows on rye in warm and damp conditions, could have caused the symptoms. Ergot contains alkaloids that can induce hallucinations, convulsions, and sensations of itching or burning skin, all of which were reported by the afflicted individuals in Salem. This theory posits that an outbreak of ergotism may have been interpreted as supernatural possession at a time when the understanding of medical science was limited. Another explanation considers psychological factors, such as mass hysteria or mass psychogenic illness, where physical symptoms with no known physical cause occur within a community or group. The intense religious fervor and belief in witchcraft among the Puritans could have contributed to a collective state of anxiety and fear, leading to psychosomatic manifestations among the accusers. Social factors have also been examined as potential contributors to the spread of hysteria. The tensions arising from political instability, land disputes, and personal rivalries within Salem Village may have created an environment ripe for accusations. The trials provided an outlet for resolving conflicts under the guise of combating witchcraft. Furthermore, some researchers have explored the possibility that some individuals may have feigned symptoms for attention or to manipulate situations to their advantage. In a society where women and children had limited power, accusing others of witchcraft could have been a way to exert influence or seek revenge. While no single scientific explanation can fully account for all aspects of the Salem witch trials, these theories provide a framework for understanding how a combination of environmental, psychological, and social factors could have converged to create a climate of fear and superstition that led to one of the most infamous episodes in American history. Enduring impact. The Salem witch trials left an enduring impact on American society and legal practices, serving as a cautionary tale about the dangers of extremism, false accusations, and lapses in due process. The trial's legacy has been reflected in various aspects of cultural and political life, influencing everything from literature to the legal system. In terms of legal reforms, the Salem witch trials highlighted the need for a more rigorous legal framework to protect the accused. The trials were characterized by a reliance on spectral evidence and testimony, which would not be permissible in modern courts. The miscarriage of justice that occurred in Salem led to changes in the admissibility of evidence and the rights of defendants, laying the groundwork for the right to legal representation and the presumption of innocence until proven guilty. Culturally, the trials have been immortalized in numerous works of fiction and non-fiction, perhaps most famously in Arthur Miller's play The Crucible, which used the Salem witch trials as an allegory for McCarthyism in the 1950s. The story of Salem continues to resonate as a powerful narrative about the consequences of hysteria and intolerance. The events of 1692 also serve as a reminder of the potential for societal breakdown when fear overrides rationality. The witch trials have become synonymous with paranoia and injustice, often cited in discussions about modern-day witch hunts and the importance of maintaining civil liberties. Moreover, Salem has become a symbol of how marginalized groups can be scapegoated during times of crisis. The trials disproportionately targeted women, reflecting broader patterns of misogyny and oppression. This aspect of Salem's history has been embraced by various movements advocating for gender equality and social justice. Today, Salem capitalizes on its infamous history as a tourist destination, with museums, memorials, and annual events that educate visitors about the trials, while also exploring themes of persecution and human rights. The Salem witch trials' enduring impact is a testament to their significance as a pivotal moment in American history, a moment that continues to inform contemporary discussions about justice, fairness, and the protection of individual rights.